So Brandon French is our first king of the capitalism jungle that we've captured in his native habitat for a second, and we want to investigate his entrepreneurial spirit.
So ESOLD, so you quit the day job, you got a storefront, you've got ESOLD rolling, maybe not rolling.
Sure, it was still it was small. You know, we had up to 10 customers a day would come in, you know, something like that. But we had enough work to keep us busy from, you know, a couple of established customers that we could stay busy. And at this point is when I hired my first couple people.
Okay.
So
what were they doing for you exactly?
We would do some shipping, and then we also did some actual processing as far as the sales go.
Right. So they would move the stuff around and handle the deliveries. And,
right. Everything.
And so, was that more or less immediate once you got your storefront and you were busy enough? You went and hired a couple of people. Or
I hired one guy part time, and I mean it was just. Again, it was out of necessity. I knew that I couldn't do it all,
right? And
so, you know, we had to make sure that it worked out financially, and so it was all, I guess, performance based for them.
Okay, so you weren't just paying them by the hour.
I was paying them by the hour, but we had minimum item quotas to, you know, basically the important part for me there was to figure out I could make their payroll if they did this much work. In other words, they could pay themselves if they did this amount of work. And so I kind of figured out the metric of what they needed to do in order to pay for themselves,
right,
and help me at the same time.
And you set that as their performance metric.
Their performance,
with them.
And if they exceeded that performance metric, they got a little bit extra, and if they didn't, well, they got a little bit less. But I figured out the quantified metric of what they needed to produce in order for them to pay their own salary or payroll.
That's good.
And so that was an important part of hiring that first person.
Right. Mathematically, you knew.
If
you could justify it and what it would take to continue to justify it.
Right.
Awesome. So New Wave, officially New Wave has been around 3 years, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Three and a half.
Yeah, incorporated for 3 years.
Okay. And at the time of incorporate, so you have 10 employees now.
Mm-hmm.
You say maybe half of those are actually full-time employees. Mm-hmm. You have a second store. Mm-hmm. So do you have one particular person that's sort of your deputy manager?
Right-hand man, of course, and that's important.
Is that your first person that's stuck with you?
No, I mean, because he's still in school, so it's like the second guy that came on board.
Mm-hmm.
But
at what point, what year was it that person came on?
The first year, and it was basically us three, me, the original ESOLD employee, and the one extra for about 8 months or so. Then we hired one more guy. I mean, it was really small and slow.
So how did you find this deputy manager person? And I'm not describing it properly. Your second in command.
Sure, vice president, if you want to call it. I don't know.
Through ASU Career Services?
No, he was an old friend that I knew he was techie, and I knew that he knew.
Techie, okay.
Yeah, techie was important to me at the time because that's something that maybe I wasn't, and I needed someone to fill in the gaps where I was short.
Did he go to ASU? Did he?
I think for some time he did.
Yeah. All right. And okay, yeah.
So I mean,
so you've hired more. So the trajectory of the business, to kind of get back to that, you once you started offering the services and the mobile phone services and service plans in addition to the hardware, at what point was it immediate that you identified yourself as prepaid mobile phone plans, as being that guy?
What we found out really quick, you know, within 3 or 4 months in, is that having a customer that was a residual customer that had to come back every month to renew their plan or to pay their bill created a different type of returning customer, because they would come back, yes, to pay every month, but any reason to get them in the store was a reason to sell them on something else. And a lot of my customers, you know, they'll pay their bill 1 month and then upgrade in 2 months or whatever like that. So we had a lot of returning business, and it got busier. And then as that increased, more. And so these returning customers turned out to be why we needed more help and we needed more products, because we had more people coming back more often.
And eventually it just started feeding off itself eventually.
Exactly.
Your employees, I mean, I think that's a critical issue in the evolution of starting a business, is at what point do you take the plunge and start spending money? And you established earlier that you were able to figure out mathematically how to justify hiring a new employee and how that employee could justify their existence as well. So do you still use that scheme even here at New Wave?
I do. We have incentive-based performance metrics or standards to where we do whatever your job function is, whether it's repairs or whether it's sales.
Right.
We do have certain guidelines that we look at. Not really quotas. We don't want to call them quotas or commissions, but we call them spiffs or other things that evaluate how much you have done based on your job.
You came up with these based on your knowledge of the business and the numbers, looking at the numbers, and now you do use an outside accountant, right?
Now I do. I didn't always. I did whenever it became overwhelmingly a task. But
okay. So would you say you're a numbers guy?
Yes, I love reports. I'll use one service over another. If you have better reports or better reporting software or whatever it may be that you offer better reports, I prefer that. I love reports and the end of the week, end of the month, end of the day, end of the cycle.
Okay, so for tracking your numbers, you're talking about software for tracking your numbers and how you want to see for driving your decisions.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. I mean, every major decision, obviously, you should have some sort of standard or mechanism on which you're basing that decision, numbers-wise. And if you don't have the correct reports or the correct information, it's impossible. But if you can narrow down, to the day or to the dollar, what's going on, you can make a better decision.
Well, let's talk about the second store. Now that seems like a huge decision point. When did you open the Paragould store?
We had the idea of making a franchise model out of the business. We wanted replicable processes, and we wanted centralized information. And so we wanted to be able to replicate everything that we did. And while we have another one in Paragould, one could argue that that's not the best market for your second store, but we wanted something geographically close that we could learn how to make more of us, So if that was a success, if we could do it there, then we knew we could do it farther away. And so that was that point.
Okay. And is it self-supporting? Is it?
Again, we thought that it would take off a lot faster just because we thought the reason that we started off slower initially was maybe because we were learning. But turns out businesses just start off slow. When they're small, they just start off slow no matter how much you know. And so even though we knew everything we thought going into it, it took it a long time and probably wasn't profitable until about a year in.
When did you open it?
It was open a year in November, so it's been open for about a year and a half. So
November 2011, you opened the Paragould store, and so it is paying for itself now.
Oh, it is now, yeah. Maybe less than a year it was paying for itself, but for that first year it was tough, even though we knew what we were doing. So
you haven't done a ton. I guess when you had eSold, you were doing a good bit of actual newspaper ads or whatever to start to drive your initial customers.
I mean,
do you do anything like that now?
We do. I mean, we do online advertising. We do phone book. We do. I think they're doing like these little door hangers that hang on the door now with different ads on there.
Right.
You can spend a lot of money. Got the car. Yeah, I got the sticker on the back of the car. That's big. You can spend a lot of money. You can spend a little. It doesn't always have a perfect ratio on how much you spend leads to a certain amount of results.
Do you have any idea of what? Do you think it seems like it might be sort of feeding off itself?
I know, and that's the good part. Anything. Yeah, the free stuff is the better stuff. It seems like, and it would be great in a local market in a business if you could say, well, $5. Okay, good example. Facebook, $5 gets you this much advertising. They pay per click or pay per impression or whatever. So you spend $5, you know what you're getting for $5. If you spend $5 in a local market, newspaper or billboard or radio, it doesn't always have the same outcome per dollar. You know what I mean?
Okay.
The ratio isn't there.